Welcome to Whiskey Wisdom. I'm your host, Shaq.
And I'm your host, Nahum.
This week, man, first of all, welcome to the new studio. Okay, welcome to the new studio. Okay, we decided to upgrade just a little bit. Just a little bit, kind of get a little bit more for the people that want the visual as well as the audio, right? Because we've tried for so long to give people the audio, but the kind of people that get people in the room with us is a visual and an audio kind of art. So that's something that we're going to start to encompass more. Those of you that are listening to this podcast for the first time, this is Whiskey Wisdom. Basically, what we do is we take questions that are either funny or kind of outlandish and talk about them in a way that is um kind of comedic but also insightful. And then there's also times where we talk about topics that are um a little deeper and kind of philosophical, and to make you think about something a little more than you usually would, but we give it to you in a way that is something that you can take to your friends and family to kind of expand on your relationships with them as well. But this week, we decided to bring back one of our favorite guests, Josh. Welcome back.
Thank you. One of your
You know,
favorites. Oh my gosh. Unexpected. I like
welcome back.
keep that. Thank you.
Did you guys enjoy the intro that was created there?
It was very nice. It was a very nice pour too.
It was, yeah. It was.
Very on theme. You are right. You're right. All right. That is, listeners, why I was kind of laughing a little bit at the beginning. It's just Shaq did the heavy lifting getting us here set up in the new studio. So a lot of this was just as much of a surprise for me as it was for a lot of you. But he's right. We've made an concerted effort to move to a more visual input as well. We are men after all.
It only makes sense.
So a lot of excitement for this one.
True. I like the new intro because just real quick, you use the glass that I'm currently drinking out of, like right now. So I was like, "Hey,
that's tumbler." Okay, all right. Yes,
cool. That was actually a live intro.
That was a live pour. Yeah. That was a live pour. We're doing that live every stream. And I'm gonna run back to my desk to cut it after I'm done. But other than that though, Josh, how are you, man?
I'm doing okay, actually. I've been good, been okay. Just a lot of turmoil lately for me, but we're getting through,
Okay. I feel you. I mean, yeah, I would definitely partake in the whiskey as well this evening with you gentlemen. But I just had food poisoning 2 days ago, so it was probably not in my best interest to
perhaps you can do
so.
something like I'm doing. I had to, I'd opened some juice a while ago, and it's not that it's close to going bad, but just thought I should use it up. So I'm having some juice and tequila. Shaq, would that sound like a more healthier...
juice and tequila?
Yes. Does that sound like perhaps a healthier, nutritious way to get you back in shape?
Perhaps yes. If I just heavily pour fruit juices with my whiskey, then I would for sure curtail the majority of the damage that will be done in the alcohol as it's passing through my system. Absolutely. Okay. I'm at a point physically where to laugh hurts. So
I see.
Now look, okay. Now there honestly is. This is going to sound wild, but there is no better ab exercise than dry heaving. Okay, dry heaving.
You really feel
that you clench everything. Like
that is true. Actually,
you clench everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Like no better ab exercise. I've never engaged as many ab muscles in my life.
And then when you're done, you have this like little knot in your stomach.
Right. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. But yes. So anyway,
I mean, we
So
do
we
give listeners here the second best one, and it's just a constant stream of laughter um, that I can only hope will keep you prepared, Shaq, for any future
probably
dry
is.
heaving you might need.
Every chuckle comes with a bit of pain, but it's worth it. But it is a price that we pay. So yeah, so we had two potential avenues to go this evening. One of which is a question that is a bit more serious,
Mhm.
um, and an avenue of a question that is a bit more, kind of goofy and properly silly. So
Mhm.
um, now to you, Nahum, I'm going to leave it up to whether or not we go to the one that's a little goofy or we go to the one that's a little more direct.
Well, I think we have a little bit of time here where we can slip one in, just for a bit of laughs and lighthearted before we get into what I think is a pretty heavy one,
Hmm.
and especially going to be one that's I think a little complex by nature of the
Right.
question itself and beliefs and all that. So I think it's good to slip one in, and we'll just keep an eye on the time here and everything. So I think we can definitely do both. Plus, given the things that we just mentioned here, I'd like to give you guys a little bit of laughs and humor and enjoyment to get, you know, Josh, bring him up a little bit, and laugh you back to health before we go into a
You gonna
kind of
fuck me up.
deep.
Don't give that man a workout, man.
Well,
Yeah.
you don't
Believe
get
me.
old because you don't stop playing because you get old, Shaq. You get old because you stop playing. You know.
Is that okay? All right. All right.
Hmm.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay.
Because
I'm gonna
when
write that
Michael
down.
Jordan stopped playing, he did get old. So I suppose that does check out.
But yeah, so we can bring up the first one. I actually am a little unsure in the new studio if I'm able to share the screen,
Can you
but I
share?
sent it to.
Oh, okay. Which one are we doing? So you
Um, am I the from Reddit? Am I the asshole for not paying for the food and leaving my
this
date
one,
stranded?
certainly. Okay. Want to bring this one up? You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
So I can just read it here straight from the screen. All the listeners at home can see it as well, and we'll start to pick it apart a little bit. We debated or thought of maybe discussing this one or last week as well when we had another guest on, but we went with a different route, and we had started to differentiate. So that's why I kind of wanted to bring it back and see if we finally broke it all down in the why. So it reads, am I the asshole for not paying for the food and leaving my date stranded? And everyone can see it, but I'll leave the edit out till later. My sister set me up with her friend a few weeks ago. Yesterday, I picked her up from her house and took her to a restaurant for dinner. After we finished eating, she asked the waitress to refill her glass of water. The place was packed and the waitress passed by our table multiple times. Instead of a friendly reminder, she told her if she was mentally declining, she should be in retirement home instead of leaving people thirsty. The poor woman looked like she was about to cry. She started apologizing to my date and went to get the water. I was shocked, embarrassed, and angry at the same time. I told her, why the fuck would she even think about that sentence, let alone say it out loud? I excused myself, went to apologize to the waitress. I paid for the food I ordered, tipped her big time, and left. This morning, my sister called me angrily, saying how much of an asshole for what I did to her friend. Apparently, after I left, the manager threatened to call the cops if she didn't pay. She had to call her father to send her the money for the dinner and the ride back home. I explained to my sister that her friend did what her friend did, but she wasn't interested in taking my side. She told me since I picked her up from the place and since it was my turn paying for the date, I should have just done so and drove her back home or given her money for a taxi. This is where the edit comes in, where they mentioned that they had already decided to take turns paying for the dates. I wasn't interested in arguing with her, so I said I'll send the money to give to her friend, and I told her God have mercy on both their future boyfriends. She said if they were asshole like me, she wouldn't even touch them with a 10-foot pole, and hung up. So we briefly discussed this one, and I think Shaq, you and Jeffy, our previous guest, she also differed with me on what we would have done, because I said I probably would have just paid for the date, and either, I don't know, maybe I would have left her, but more likely than not would have just like immediately gotten up, paid for the date, and just been like, all right, we're leaving, and take it home, end everything this year, and still break everything off. Jeffy and Shaq were not entertaining it at all, even though we didn't get into the depth of it. What was your move, Shaq?
I mean, well, look. First of all, okay. You know, I think that the friend was trying to be kind to the old woman. Now, listen. Okay, here's what I mean. Okay. The friend had the old woman's best interest at heart, because she was like, "Hey, like, you shouldn't, you know, what you out here with these, you know, with these like young spry. Like, just go to the home. Like, just go to the home. Like, stop dragging it out. I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty."
Hey,
You know? I'm thirsty, right? The job ain't going well for you. Like, how about we just both, you know, you
Cut
do
our
it here
losses.
for both of us, right? You do it for both of us. Go to the home, okay, and let me get the service that, you know, that I'm trying to effectively pay for here, okay? You know, maybe she said it wrong. Sure, right? Maybe she shouldn't have said, you know, if you're mentally declining, that's aggressive, right? You know, that's a little OD. But you know,
So
but
is it the wording or the tone for you?
I mean,
Jack,
look, you know, I can't. I mean, look,
We can't get her tone.
right, but also the tonality doesn't really change the verbiage, right? So if I said you're mentally declining in an aggressive way versus ma'am, you're mentally declining, like it doesn't really change.
I don't know. To quote a lot of the arguments I've had, it's not what I said, it's how I said it. Why did you run both of those by me? You know, with different tones.
Yeah, to where it's like, you know, you're mentally declining versus ma'am, you're mentally declining. Like, you know, you should go back to the home. You should go back to the home. Right? Where's your guardian?
I feel like you're trying to sound concerned, but it's just coming off as condescending.
That's exactly my point. Right? That's exactly my point. The tone is irrelevant when the message is so severe. It don't matter how you say it when the message is so disrespectful. You know what I mean? So
fair.
You know, the poor woman looked like she was about to cry, started apologizing to my date, and went to go get the water. Okay, look. So, in all seriousness, okay, yeah, look, I would have left, because look, if you don't take it upon yourself to insult a old woman that is trying to,
we actually don't know that this was an old woman.
Yeah,
never is it said in there.
Yeah,
but that's implied by she should be in a retirement home, right? You ain't gonna say it to a 24-year-old.
Well, I think
I'm just saying it's extra rude if you.
I think we can just guess that the waitress was older than the date, but not necessarily old per se.
Yeah. So, okay, but like regardless, right? If you have the wherewithal to make that sort of a statement, then you also have the wherewithal to pay for the bill. You know, with the like repercussions that comes with that sort of aggression, right? So, my conscience would have been clean to be like, I'm just get the fuck out of here before this food gets sabotaged, because it don't seem to be trending well.
Mm-hmm.
So Nahum would have paid and then dipped. I would have just left. What's your take, Josh?
So I'm looking at this as like in two ways, right? One way, I kind of agree with Nahum. Like, you did pick the date up. Like, you are out on a date with this person. You gotta kind of get her home, at least. Like, I would I would just pay for the date and then just take her home. But that ride home would be absolutely silent because the vibes are off now. The vibes are completely off. Like, it was disgusting because like who says that to another human being? Like,
and with me, it's not even that like I feel that I need to. Like I guess to a certain extent, it's like, all right, I agree to this, all this and whatever. But like, like we aren't that beholden to each other that like, oh, I really need to all this. I can cut that off at any point. I understand that, but I think it's more so like I pay for the date, take you home, make my feelings known about all this. Like I cut this here. Like frankly, I think it's maybe this is a petty way of thinking about it, but it's the sense that like I come out of this squeaky clean, unscathed. Like ain't nothing can be said to impugn upon me and my person.
Mm-hmm.
You, on the other hand, I can go all over town say what I want, like,
Oh,
like,
right, because I didn't pay for it because I just left.
Well, no. As in, like, I can say if I take her home.
Oh,
and,
I
like,
got you.
All that, like, what are you gonna say about me?
Right.
That like you really gonna go around telling people like I cut things off with you and dumped you because of what you did? I suppose you can just be like, it didn't work out. That's the most gracious way of coming out of this story that you can possibly come out. And whatever, I don't really care about it. But like, you can't say anything about me. If I want to tell people the truth and like how it all happened, then I can say all that. Like, still come out. But now it's out in the world. I don't know how much of it should matter to me, but now the way that this happened and it actually unfolded, it's out in the world. And this girl and her sister are, saying or misconstruing all these things. Whether or not that should matter to me, I guess is a topic of discussion. But also, the future of my dating life could, to a certain degree, be affected by this. Whereas in like the other way, it's like, I was gonna pay for the date. I was gonna take her home anyways.
Yeah. True. I mean,
but Josh, you also consider leaving her. You said you were of two minds.
Yeah, because I'm with this guy almost 100% because that is just foul. Like, because I'm with him, like I'm embarrassed. I'm like, oh my goodness, because there's always that. I mean, at that point, I think they had gotten ordered, but I watch too much TV and shows and stuff, and so like when you're mean to like the waiters or the chefs or the cooks or something, they mess with your food, right? And you'll never know it. And that is like, it has to be like at least top 20 fears of mine. So I'm just nice and courteous. If they mess up an order, it's okay, like it's fine. But sometimes I'll get it changed back if I actually do not want to eat that. But if it's like something small, like then it's whatever. But just to, they forgot water, like take my water, like something, like please, just why would you say that to her?
Josh, you don't understand. She need to be in the home, Josh. Right? You are delaying. You are delaying the problem. Okay? I don't want your water. I want good service, Josh. And that's just not what we getting here.
Then don't leave her a tip. You don't have to tell her.
You want a tip? Go back to the home. That's your tip. That's your advice. That's your advice for the evening. Thank you, ma'am. Nah, that's crazy. Yeah, that is OD.
I would be ridiculously embarrassed though if just someone did that.
Right. Yeah. Because at that restaurant now you're kind of tied to that person.
Yeah.
So like you can't really
forever, basically.
You imagine taking them to like your spot?
Oh yeah, that's chalk.
Oh no.
That's
oh no.
Up. That's fucked
If
up.
this is one of my favorite places to eat, I
can't. Yeah.
Then I'm
coming back later the same day to be like, hey, look, by the way, GA, hey, don't hold that shit against me, fam. Okay, that was fucked up. All right, we both know it's fucked up. All right, you know I fuck with you, Susan. You know what I mean? Like, I fuck with you, heavy Gertrude. But
still giving her these old ass names.
But
oh gosh.
but no. Did y'all have anything else on that or no? No. We got.
That was a bad date, and he may not have acted accordingly, but he acted right in his heart at the time. So
and that's all that matters. Follow your heart.
Yeah. True.
Well, yeah. So for our other question, which was a little bit more insightful, deeper, complicated. So earlier this week, I was watching a actual video, and the person that was in the video was explaining how being a person of Christianity for them was the most pure form of improving themselves that they had encountered, right? You know, that they went through the whole idea of, hey, grind set, wake up at 4 a.m., get to the money, get to the bag. You know, you wasting time, everything should be business minded, et cetera, and how that didn't really last too long for them. And and then once they started to move into religion, then the angle that they came in with was that they were improving themselves to put themselves closer to the image that the creator wanted them to be in, right? Now, the angles of this conversation is going to be particularly interesting. You know, Nahum, his whole life has been Christian. Josh, I am assuming that your entire life you have been Christian. I began Christian when I was around, you know, from when I was growing up to around like 12, and then I stopped. But I am still addicted to improving aspects of myself on a like daily basis. So I'm just kind of curious as to what you guys' angle of it is. If you feel like the statement is true, if you feel like if it's too simplified, or you know, just in general how you actually kind of feel about it.
So I'm gonna start it off just because I know there was a little bit of talk. We didn't go into the points for the sake of saving the shack, but I know there was a little back and forth when we were potentially talking about this being a question. And before I actually go into it, I guess I will only start with saying that I think there's a point in which we may end up making this into, you know, a part A and a part B discussion. Some of it, like I had said in that quick talk beforehand, dealing really with the theological and the religious aspect of it, before maybe going on to just kind of the self-improvement and, you know, the different facets that can be. For starting, I think with the theological and the religious aspect of it, I think I had mentioned to you from jump that I can see I can see some of why, like, what leads to this, you know, or that saying that belief per se. But fundamentally, from hearing the statement and I guess you didn't give the statement that you gave me, Shek, but from hearing the statement and the way that the question is formed and the statement is formed, I've have some fundamental disagreements with that when it comes to then theology and religion and how supposedly this statement's crafted or how it's coming along. Um, and it is kind of something that is present throughout a lot of the teachings and through how we're supposed or how I was taught to um, kind of believe or the lens that I was taught to use when I'm seeing changes and things like that and things that are happening in life with respect to God and religion. So before I go into that, I don't know if Josh, you have any opening um, remarks.
I do a little bit. So before you told your story, Shaq, when I first saw that question, I thought that it was going to be somewhere along the lines of self-improvement in the fact that, someone has gained morals, essentially. Because I know for a good number of people, not everyone, but for a good number of people, like religion is just how you treat or how you view the rest of the world and how you treat, your fellow man around you. Like one of the golden rules is treat others how you want to be treated, you know, um, or one of the golden rules I grew up with.
Right.
So I thought it was going to be like more so like instilling some type of moral value system into someone, but for it to be like this kind of got my life on track after kind of following a way that you kind of see that's kind of popularized in media and everything. Did not work for him. It was very interesting. I am very curious if there is more elaboration to the person that you spoke to story for that, because that would be a first, at least for me, to hear about.
Right. Yeah. Let me see if I can.
I do have that quote, Shaq, already in front of me. But I don't know if there's a particular different part that you think works better to highlight the point.
Well, I was just going to share the quote itself.
Okay.
Right.
All right, because we can do that now.
Yes. So the quote itself, was that I got up at 4:30 a.m. this morning and went for a run for 3 miles. Quote, I don't think, oh, I want to get in better shape or I'm trying to get more work done in the day. I am thinking about how I want to be more like the Lord wants me to be. And in doing that, he is inspiring me to work out more. He is inspiring me to get up early and get to my shit. Right. So kind of coming at it from the premise of like my the purpose of my improvement is to um, strive for the image that I think that the Lord has for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which to Josh, that kind of plays into what you were saying as far as like the idea with like morals, as far as people improving from that perspective of, hey, I should treat people better because if I abide by these rules, then I am living by this word. Which again, I'm not particularly Christian and or religious and or studied, but that was my understanding as far as the angle that they took, that it was self-improvement less from the angle of I'm doing this for me from a selfish perspective, but I'm doing this um for the object of the religion that I'm a part of.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this then is a good spot to kind of break this down a little bit into where I had some of the pauses with this.
Mhm.
Um, the biggest one that I had from jump was, I guess, from seeing the question before getting into the details and the different things, um, was in particular, um, the self improvement part of this question, when then referenced with religion or God, if we want to say, um, mind you, I guess pretty big caveat. We're talking in a pretty specific like Christian, um,
Mhm.
what's the word? Christian
Christian
uh,
viewpoint, Christian
viewpoint. Thank you.
lens. Yeah.
But fundamentally, one of the biggest things I had with like issues I sort of had with the question or the viewpoint was the use of self improvement through that, because I think it is I think it is frankly, um, fundamental to the belief and to the different teachings of Christianity that it is not through self that this happens, particularly any improvement or any of the aspects of the religion and the faith. You know, it is it is the same thing, and this is where we get a little bit into the scripture and a little bit into all the teachings and all that, and I'm going to try to keep that a little bit minimized because it's not necessarily
Mhm.
what we're always here for, but to put it in the context of the religion then is kind of the idea is that it doesn't matter how good of a person you are, you are never saved by that alone. It is only through the Lord, through Christ Jesus, and that you then are saved, and then you know begin what we call a process of, I'm going to translate it because I know the saying in Spanish, or the what we call the process, but in Spanish we say santificación, a process of becoming holy or saint like, the idea is you continuously are to are becoming, or the idea is you're continuously improving, becoming more and more like Christ. That
Mhm.
is kind of the goal, the ideal, which should be happening in ideal conditions after accepting the Lord, and kind of beginning this journey. Um, so in that sense, there is a improvement that happens, and I think that is very fair. However, the key point in that I had a disagreement with was the part because it calls it self improvement, and there's a fundamental understanding, I think, that it's
Mm.
no, it's not through self. It is because the Lord has, you've accepted the Lord. He's, as we say, he's entered in you, and he begins to work through you. Um, and it is through that becomes possible. Now, I mentioned at the top that it was like, one of these, like, the Lord works in mysterious ways, because I got to Bible study this week after we talked that, and we were talking about different, sometimes called different heroes, or different people from the Bible, and we happened to be talking about Moses. And one of the big key points of the lesson was that, like, the Lord uses who he wishes, and more often than not uses people who are, sort of unequipped,
Mhm.
or the like not a traditional person that you would see to succeed in these kinds of things.
Or
um,
broken.
or broken is a often used word for it, yeah. And
Mhm.
the idea is that it is not because these people are doing it, it is because the Lord is acting through them. Moses, being the example, was as many people would know, then a man who had committed sin, murdered, and kind of been banished or self-exiled, from his land, and then the whole thing with the baby and all that. And then the things that some people don't necessarily know, or is not as common, is Moses himself, when he gets this task, is being like, I can't do this, Lord. I was about to say dude, but he's like, I'm not equipped to do this. I stutter,
Mhm.
like I get nervous, all this other stuff, and so what is not often known as much is Moses stuttered. Oftentimes, if he was addressing the people, it wasn't always just Moses; it was his brother. Like there were different things that like Moses is going to be like, there's A, B, C, and D reasons why I can't do this, and the Lord's like, all right, A, B, C, D. Like, go on. And eventually just kind of puts him all that, and obviously there's a lot of the story, there's success and all that, but a big point of the initial kind of disagreement that I had is just that idea that there, for me, and kind of the way I was taught, there is improvement that happens, but to call it self-improvement is almost missing the an important part of what goes on here with the religion thing. There is, however, something to be said about the idea, and I've said it before, Shaq, as to how I handle some of my things that, like, there's a lot of things that can be thrown my way, and I may not be able to handle it, or I might feel uncertain about it, but it's kind of the end of the day, like, you can try to do, you being the world or people, whatever, you can try to do whatever you want, and like, I may be struggling here, but the big guy is literally, like, the whole fundamental part of the belief is that the big guy is there, and he has accepted me and loved me, and while I'm not saying my life is going to be cake, is with me, and it's like fundamental belief is that, like, I may be not be able to handle you, but like you can't handle him, so I'm all right. Like, I have a tank on the team.
Literally.
We have a Hulk. Yeah.
We
have a Hulk.
We have a Hulk type situation. Yeah. Real.
No, I mean, yeah, Josh.
Oh, so Nahum, I definitely see what you're saying, where it's just kind of that one word. And actually, while you were talking, I looked up something because I wasn't exactly sure. Because I think I agree, fundamentally, to call it self-improvement. Basically, you're doing this to serve yourself, or you're giving your life over to the Lord to serve yourself, and really you should just be giving your life over to the Lord to serve the Lord. I think if the word was changed to self-actualization, I think it would reign more true. And I did look up the definition for self-actualization. It is the realization or fulfillment of one's talents and potentialities. I can't read, especially considered as a drive or need present in everyone. So I think that more so fits with what the question is trying to say, in my eyes, at least.
Yeah, I think it starts to make an improvement. I think self is probably the part that I have the most.
Okay, so
the most issue with. I think the improvement happens. I think the actualization happens. And I think it is like bringing something out slash there is, there are talents, and maybe it's kind of the idea of, I guess, to put it like this, sticking with the same example, Moses was shepherding sheep and all that. I'm assuming he was okay at shepherding sheep, and then it's like the self-actualization part, or the actualization part, or improvement part of this was kind of then the Lord being like, hey, like, yes, you can shepherd sheep, but that's not like where your talents lie, and therefore setting him to do other things. I can sort of get more in line with that, because it is something that he was capable of, evidently, but I think the part that really kind of does get me is that the part that he was capable of it because of the Lord. It's in my head, it's always very much a not to minimize one's own achievements, but it is like what I often call is, I am an instrument of the Lord, or a conduit of the Lord, and it is him working through me, as opposed to me doing these things. And I think that's why it kind of, I don't know, like it gives me a bit of friction with it. Um, it gets very hard though, because at the same time I have to acknowledge, and it's, my also same belief is that we do have free will. So the Lord lets us do, what we want to do. How much of that is always like, you know, how much of that is me being good at something because, it is me, and how much of it is like Shaq, in your gaming skills and professions, like Shaq sitting there, how much of this is like the Lord wants to be me to be excellent at
Sure.
gaming? Like I guess.
Yeah.
Versus it's just, that is one of the skills that he did receive.
Mhm.
That gets into a dicey place. But I think more than anything, it was the self that got me sort of hesitant.
Right. I mean,
Um,
yeah. So, so my like overall take, right? Like the reason why I found this question particularly interesting, right? Again, the people that are watching, listening, is religion the purest form of self improvement, right? Because as Nahum was saying, he had the gripe with the word self, right? Self being inherently when one is focused on oneself, right? To say, well, look, I need to be better. So, the angle that I'm taking for me to be better is this, right? Some people take the angle of I need to be better for my family. I need to be better
mm,
for my kids. I need to be better um for myself, but the angle that the person that I was listening to earlier this week took was I need to be better for my religion, right?
Hmm.
Now, not necessarily I need to be better for the sake of spreading the word of my religion, but I need to be better because of the image that my religion has for me,
mhm,
right?
Hmm.
Um now that's where the word, you know, is it the form that is the most pure,
sure.
right?
Hmm.
Is it coming from the perspective of, the angle that we think that one would take within religion would be naturally one of I want to help others, right? From a completely like selfless sort of angle, right? I want to improve in order to improve other people, right? At least that was my understanding of it. But um, there's angles that, for myself I can say, hey, I want to improve at dancing or rock climbing.
Mhm,
Not necessarily because I want to give people a better time dancing, not necessarily because I want to give people a better time around me rock
Mm.
climbing, because I want to be better at rock climbing for me. I want to be better at dancing for me, not because of the image of anyone may have for me, but from
mhm,
an entirely selfish perspective. I feel as though I should have this skill, right? So the inspiration that I have that drives me personally is something that is completely internal. However, there is some external factors as far as um, the expectations that I place upon myself from the people that I look up to, right? So this is kind of where ultimately, um, in my head, the conversation was beginning to become angled towards, because I believe that humans have a natural need to have a purpose, right? To feel as though they exist for a reason. To say, I am here for this.
mhm,
I am growing in this capacity for this, And when we don't have that angle, when we don't have that direction, then we feel lost. And when we feel lost, then we tend to lose ourselves in um in in situations that don't utilize our time effectively, right? Drugs, um,
Hmm.
things that are overly comfortable, that are not necessarily in our best interest, because it kind of removes us from that question of, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Right. Now, I feel as though, as we are growing up, we have a general need for structure. Okay. I've spoken on this many times before. as far as the need of a young person to have structure as they're growing up so that they know how to conduct themselves going forward, right? Some people lean upon martial arts as a form of of actual discipline as far as, hey, this is how you do this. Some people lean upon other sports, football, basketball. Some people lean on going to school, right? On like proper schooling. You need to hit A's, you need to hit, this particular mark. You need to make sure you come home and study, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Having that form of structure. And some people lean upon going to church and religion as that consistency of, hey, this is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? And um and generally humans have to have a reason, um as as I said, as to why they're doing what they're doing. Now, um I just find it particularly interesting as this person found their reason for self-improvement is of the image that they believe that religion has for them, right? But I believe that everyone still has to have something in order to progress toward anything. So I think that that's ultimately kind of what my mind kind of processed through it. It kind of looked past the religious angle, but more so like this is this person's um overall light as far
Right.
as like why they're living their life in the way that they are. So now I kind of bring that back to you from a religious angle. Um with that sort of like caveat, do you believe that um well, okay, there's another question that I kind of had that's like along that same sort of side, right? To where this person sees the pressure from um from the religion to improve, but are there others that find safety within it and don't necessarily feel a reason to improve at all because they believe that religion will handle everything on the back end?
100%.
Definitely. I know. Just real quick, I know multiple people when the pandemic happened. Just as an example, who was just like, "We'll be fine. We got God on our side," and would just like pray and hope, that they don't catch COVID and still go out without masks. Vaccines came around, wouldn't get the vaccine, anything. It actually happened to one of my mom's friends who was kind of like that. Then she caught COVID and she got really, really, really bad with it. Ended up in the hospital and on a respirator, but she was actually able to recover with it. But she definitely got the vaccine like pretty soon after that. So yeah, there are definitely people who definitely do that.
And Shaq, I mean, I think depending on how far back you can recall, I've shared at different points that I catch myself um, doing it in some ways, not um, not really in huge things I find, but in smaller things when there's, let's say, not much of a threat or a need for real. When there's room for comfort or complacency, um, and the ways that I know I do it is because in my mind and in my heart, it's that the Lord will do what the Lord will do, and ultimately, there's not much I can do about that. Much to your point, the part where then it becomes a bigger question, and where I have acknowledged myself, that takes a lot of maturity and both as a person and both within the faith to be able to navigate those spots, is because um, from a religious aspect, just because the Lord can and does have things planned out and all that, doesn't mean it does not require us to act or to ask or do things. I've often slightly different example, but I've said, I think, on this podcast at different times before, compared the Lord and how much he knows and sees us acting, to my mom when I was a teen, who she knew that I had to, I had my chore of taking out the trash every Thursday. And my mom, more often than not, she's like, I know when you want, where you will and you won't take it out. I'm your mom. Like, I just inherently know you.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of translating that is how much more, the Lord, being the person who made me and everything else, and by my beliefs, like, kind of knows what's going on. He has the control. But just because he has all this power doesn't mean I am not supposed to act or ask. And the way that we sometimes use the lesson is like, the Lord can give you whatever you want, but, or can, or has the power to give you all these different things you want. But sometimes it's kind of this, like, he wants you to ask or, like, do the things. The Lord may have the ability, or has the ability, to get me, let's say, for the sake of playing this up, millions of dollars, brand new cars and all that. But, like, the belief is not that, like, I kind of sit and pray and pray and pray, and then the car, like, materializes.
Mm-hmm.
It requires action.
Yeah, like, he might, through work or all the different stuff, or, like, or if we wanted to make it very sudden, like, I just happen to win the lottery, and the Lord's like, all right, go buy your, fancy new car or whatever, but it's not like he's just going to, again, materialize out of thin air, the, like,
Right.
thing. So there's a certain amount of initiative that's still required. And I think, it is hard, and it takes some maturity to be able to find that split, because it can be easy to just be like, the Lord has it. And he's up there and he's like, yeah, but, like, you need to do something here. Like,
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
like, I work in mysterious ways, but
Yeah. He's not going to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah. So I've definitely seen that, and I saw a lot of the same things that Josh mentioned, specifically with COVID, much to some sadness, some disappointment, because I felt like there was I felt like there was some holding oneself back from this, and can definitely see where some of that is, in my opinion, misconstrued, or it kind of threw things a little off track. And then to what you said earlier, Shaq, it is definitely, I guess, something really, really interesting and strange to think about, I think, at times, since we aren't used to that being the case, where, like, someone's drive and purpose for all the things they do is religion, or is their actual devout beliefs in God, or whatever, whatever religious beliefs they hold. I think even the viewers know me enough, so in my own life and those around me, and the people I know, it's not as common as like the ideals of religion would seem to indicate, or you would expect, that someone's entire actions, beliefs, and all that is driven by these beliefs they have, and what is to them, to me, the most important, supreme thing ever. And that's why I think, like, when we bring it back to this question, it is then fairly interesting, because I think purest form of self-improvement, again, I think this is the point where we start leaving the theology a little behind, like you said, and focusing more on just the drive. Purist, it's, I can see how that argument can be made then. I suppose then, in what you call purist, or what you define as purist, is it because it's completely selfless?
Yeah, it's well, yeah, it's
but it's not coming from within you.
Mhm.
Something
Right.
that comes within you, I can also, I would entertain the argument of someone being like, no. This is all me. This is just me wanting to do this for me. That is pure.
Hey, right. So look, um that is also a angle that is available, right? To say, well, look, yeah, this is just a belief that is completely mine. Um, so inherently it is pure, right? Because it's just coming just from me, right?
Shaq said, I
But
didn't say
I
it was
don't
pure
believe.
good. I just
Right,
Just use the
right.
word here.
Yeah. I didn't add any any sort of clarity on the end of that, but it's pure something, right? Um, but it's um well, to touch on something a little earlier before I touch on that, um, I think that that in order for people to progress, you have to believe in something, right? Because there will be
Okay.
times where progress does not happen, right? When you are backtracking, when you're having a rough time, when things aren't going great, you have to believe in something, right? For me personally, I believe in the work, right? I believe in, hey, I put in this much effort, so therefore, this much result is more than likely waiting on the back end. And the more work that I put in, the closer I'm going to get to the result, regardless of how fucking dreary, cloudy, um, how bad it may look. The work that I put in will help guide me to the end,
Mhm.
right? Some
Okay.
people put that belief in a God to say, hey, things are going terrible. Um, I really can't find my footing. Um, I like keep having this issue and this issue, but God has my back, right? He isn't going to give me anything that I can't handle. So therefore, it's going to give me the enthusiasm that I have to keep persisting, right? So I believe, well, I think that it's interesting where people put their beliefs in order to persist, right? Um, and I don't think that there exists a person. Well, that's a bad time for my camera to go out. But I, but I don't think that there exists a person that doesn't have that, right? Because
Mm.
there isn't someone that's just hopscotching through life with no obstacles, no issues at all. They're like, I don't need to believe in anything. Like things are just happening for me. Um, I don't. I do not think that that is the case. But I think that the person that I referenced for this question had a unique blend of both, kind of as you
Mhm.
were saying, right? To where
Mm.
it's you know I believe in the work, but the reason why I believe in the work is because I believe in God giving me the work that I need to do in order to accomplish that thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, so rather than just saying, "Hey, God's got it," and then you take your hands off the wheel,
Mhm.
you know, he's still trying to fucking steer, but he's like, I don't know, but God has my back, so I guess he'll fucking keep trying. Um, but where the level of purity comes in, um, is interesting because because as you were saying, right, from a devout perspective, I would assume, right, then you would try to improve yourself to improve others, right? Or would you, kind of as you were saying earlier, be a vessel for the religion that you're a part of and saying, hey, I am great just as I am, or I am perfect as I am, but the duties that I'm doing is just for X or Y purpose, if that question made sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's a tough one, and especially because intrinsically, you, like I said, with the process of becoming more and more Christ, like you're sort of, to a great extent, like have your face rubbed into it that, like, no, you are not perfect.
Yeah.
like
very much so.
Like the Lord is like, I am perfect, and therefore I can do shit through you, despite your as a la, if you ever heard Max Duarte saying, he used to say a lot, he's like, a shitty craftsman blames his tools. This is sort of the opposite of that. Very much like when if you recall, when we were making one of the projects at U of I, where I cut the drill with a, or I cut the 2x4 with a drill. And I was like, look, look at this imperfect tool to cut a 2x4
for
with.
this job, yeah.
You know, but that don't matter. You non-functional broken saw, you. It was a drill. Of course it wasn't meant to do, but I, as creator of this wall, will use you to achieve the outcome I want. So in a lot of ways, like you sort of are often like rubbed in your face that like, no. You are, in that sense, like, it's not that you are perfect the way you are. It's just that I love you despite the fact that,
despite your imperfections,
and therefore in that way can use you.
Yeah.
But then you're kind of like, the work I'm doing, like all that stuff is like, I guess you're kind of like, I guess, okay, you know, good job, God. Like, you know, we did it. And I guess the idea is, you know, throughout that whole time is, you know, that like, I guess like your edges get roughed out because almost a la like fake it till you make it thing. Like this being used and doing like the Lord's work and all this improves you because it's what you're wanting to do, it's what you're doing, it's what you're practicing doing. So even if I'm a petty person, or like I'm a selfish person, like, you know, you keep giving, you know, you're kind of exercising that muscle of giving, of caring for others, is all this. It's the practice and the doing the work, you know, helps you move forward and become more perfected, even if fundamentally you're like, this, you know, you kind of suck.
True. That's a really good like analogy, Nahum, because so many people in life and in the Bible, if you look at the beginning of their stories, they always go, oh, I can't do this. Always. They go, I can't do this. Oh, that I do this. I do that. Going back to Moses, I'm a shepherd. I do this. I can't do that. I can't speak to people. Can't speak to thousands of people. No. That's not me. And sure enough, like when you start doing the work, you know, that essentially, this is going to sound really weird, that the Lord has ordained for you, when you start doing that work, it's going to be bumpy because it's out of your comfort zone. I'm sure when you started with the wall and you were using the drill, it started off as like, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to keep, you know, going with it, you know, to cut the wall. So it really is just like everyone's been saying, who are you doing it for? Are you doing it altruistically? Are you doing it for yourself? And if you do any task like with the Lord in mind, in a way that this is going to help me become more like Him, then that's it. That's it. Especially, that's exactly what I got from the quote that you put on the screen a couple minutes earlier. He was truly waiting, listening to the Lord speak to him, and interpreted that speech as like, okay, this is what He wants me to do, and that's what I'm gonna go do. And from that, I think he has seen the improvement on his life by living for the Lord. Yeah.
So
that's what I got out of it.
So it's the difference of where the instruction comes from. So if you feel like the instruction is coming from a belief that's higher than you versus the instruction coming from yourself, then that's the difference between self-improvement that is selfish versus selfless.
I think on layman's terms, I'm gonna let Nahum speak because I know he has something to say about this. I sense it. I sense it through the computer. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that because there's so many layers to this like one thing that we just can't like put it simple as like,
Okay, I got you.
oh, the instruction is just coming from someone higher than me, so thus, it is good. Because we all do have, like Nahum said, we all do have like free will. We all do have free will, and it's whether we choose to listen or whether we choose to interpret what we're doing as the Lord told me to do this or I really want to do this. I think it's more so the interpretation, more so than the actual instruction. Yeah.
I think that's fair because, it like Josh said, it gets hard. I mean, honestly, this is part of the reason why when we first brought it up, I felt that eventually it would split into a non-theological, and even when it did, it comes back and all that. The if the instruction comes from you, or if the instruction or the goal setting of all that comes from you, it to classify that as selfish, to me it seems almost natural because it is coming from you. But that doesn't mean that the improvement or the act is, a lot to dance, to rock climb, to be healthier. It could be an initiative from you to be healthier, just because you want to be healthy, just because you feel that it is right. I mean, just because you're having fun at rock climbing, it is not. It doesn't seem selfish to me in the sense that we sometimes think traditionally of selfish. But the part that does is the fact that like this doesn't necessarily, although it can, but it doesn't necessarily serve anyone, or you're not necessarily doing this for any other reason other than the fact that it is what you want, and some of that just inherently is therefore selfish. It like whereas if you are receiving it from an outside source, I guess at that point it just depends on, I think, on what the outside source is, why you're listening to the outside source. And in the case of like outside source being family, friends, work, all this other pressures, it becomes a bit of a leveling game, and what the influence is. If you're getting healthy, because you want to be able to make sure you're around, provide for your family, all this, keep in good health for them, what have you. I guess that's, you can, how far are we breaking it down? That can still equally be unselfish because you're doing it for them, but you're doing it for them because you care about them.
I got you. Yeah.
And in the sense of the Lord, I can say oftentimes here that there are things, a lot of things, that sometimes I would admit I do because I want to do the right thing, or I want to like be loving towards someone, even if it's not necessarily something I want to do, because I'm actively enjoying it per se. And then I don't know how much of that is selfish, or is like how much of that is just me, looking for kind of my own salvation and health of my soul here, or all that. I had a conversation with Delvin not too long ago, and my example was, um, I often take one of the sisters from church. I drive her home, um, and I drive her home, and then go like the different route and everything to where I actually live, or go have dinner with my parents. Like there's no like convenience in it for me, and I do it because I care for her. I want to be loving. I want to help out because I can help out, and all this stuff. Um, but I would be lying if I didn't say that there are definitely times when I was like, okay. And at this point, it's kind of become like baked in, and like we know this is how it works. This is a standard operation, and it's sometimes the idea like before we actually get in the car, it's like, oh man, like it's gonna take some time, and she's kind of old, so she'll be talking a lot sometimes and all that.
They're trying to listen to music on my ride
You
home.
know, um, but I want sometimes my desire to be loving towards someone else goes beyond my actual desire to be helpful, if that makes any sense. And then at that point, it's kind of like how much of that is
Yeah.
selfish, is selfless. Like
I mean,
that's where it's like religion is like, hey,
yeah, I think, kind of like bring it all together, right? I think that, um, in order to improve, right, there has to be some checks and balances that are in order for you to do so, right? In the same way that with science, there's a term, um, um, entropy, right?
mhm,
Entropy, which is the idea is that things will naturally progress toward disorder, right? And you have to put energy into a system in order to maintain order within it. Um, that in order to improve, whether it be selfish or selfless, you have to maintain order. You have to have, as I was saying, a proper schedule, right? As kids, some people brought up, as I said, martial arts, school, religion, um, something to fall back on to say, hey, well, I should be doing this, right? And um, one thing that self improvement and religion can agree upon is that, um, even when there are times where you're like, I don't feel like fucking doing this shit, then then you still fall upon the order of, but I should, right? To where it's like, I don't feel like being a good person, but I should, because that's, well, from a moral perspective, that's the morally correct thing to do that I should,
mhm,
probably do. Um, and I think that that is a consistent angle that one can, look at and integrate into their lives, regardless of whether or not they are religious,
mhm,
is to have a proper system to fall back on to kind of correct, right? Some people use, God. Some people use, their past history of themselves to reflect upon and say, well, hey, do you want to go back to this? Maybe I don't. Okay, let's try to
then
Yeah.
and let's continue to like persist forward. Um, and a lot of the Christians that I have, um, had communications with, generally the actions that they take from a moral perspective is, well, I don't want to go to hell, so I
Yeah.
would rather do this thing, um, to help move me a little closer to salvation than 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 to the other side of it, right? And um and that is the one parallel, or that's one of the parallels that I can kind of see, um that is consistent as to why, um people that are religious in the sense of, well, I want to improve for this goal of helping more people or spreading the word or, XYZ. And the other angle of people that aren't necessarily religious that want to improve to say, well, I want to improve because I want to, you know, be healthier. I want to do this goal. I want to have this skill, et cetera, et cetera. Their ability to lean back on the discipline that they have is necessary for them to improve. So, I mean, look, that was my little takeaway from it. Hopefully listeners and the watchers, crazy thing to say, y'all were able to take away something that was, of your own regard, and at least something from the conversation, right? God damn. But other than that, though, did y'all have anything else, or was that about it?
I think I'm good. I think I wrapped it up pretty well. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on, Josh. Obviously,
always.
Right? Hey,
always.
You always got the insights. You feel me?
I try.
You know what I'm saying?
I try.
coming through with the bars, man. Hey, look, man. Sometimes sometimes the moral high ground is to send that old lady back to the home, and. And
he said she needs to improve.
Hey,
and
send her back to the home, bro. That's what we like to call a full circle joke, ladies.
And maybe that's just the angle that you need to take. Well, look, thanks for listening, listeners. Welcome, watchers. Welcome to the new studio. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed the experience. Other than that, we will talk to y'all soon. Fuck it, we'll see. All right, peace.
Bye.